On this edition of Native Report, we traveled to the Oneida Nation Elementary School to learn about their sugar camp.
We conclude our conversation with author and therapist Dr. Martin Brokenleg.
And we honor a member of the greatest generation as we remember World War II veteran Axel Holmes Sr. We also learn about what we can do to lead healthier lives and hear from our elders on this Native Report.
Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux community, the Blandin Foundation, and the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation.
Welcome to Native Report. I'm Rita Aspinwall.
And I'm Ernie Stevens. Making maple syrup and sugar can be a lot of hard work, but can also be a good time as family and friends gather for the annual spring harvest. For students at the Oneida Nation Elementary School, it is also a time to learn the ways of their ancestors. It's a chilly March day at the Oneida Nation Elementary School's sugar camp. An overnight rainstorm has melted most of the remaining snow and the ground is saturated, but this has not deterred staff and students from harvesting the maple sap.
Today what we're doing is we're boiling down our sap that the students had collected over the past 2 weeks. The camp that we have set up here is within our school sugar bush. We have about 20 trees that we can tap from. Each class taps a tree. And then when we gather about 100 gallons of sap, it's time for us to start our boil down. So that's what we're doing now, is we're turning our sap into syrup. We have about, 18 classes that come out, and each class has a tree that they tap. And then they burn tobacco and they give thanks, and they create an understanding between themselves and between the sugar bush out here as to what's going to be happening. And they also give thanks for the trees and the natural world continuing to do their responsibilities. When they come outside, they select their tree. They're taught how to identify a maple tree without the leaves. One of the things that we do is we watch to make sure that we have enough sap to boil down. So we need to have at least 100 gallons in order to start because of the size of our kettle. Other people that boil down have different measurements of what they use. Another thing that lets us know that it's time to start to boil down is because the snow starts to disappear from the ground. We don't have a cooling system out here that keeps our sap cold, and it's going to spoil. So we need to tell the kids about that too, and the importance of boiling it all down.
Helping out with today's camp is Elder Maxine Thomas, also a language and culture teacher at the school, and myself, firekeeper and camp manager.
So today who we have helping is we have my teacher, which is Maxine Thomas. She's back out here, and she taught me everything that I know about tapping trees and about boiling down, and even the language. We also have Ernie Stevens III, and he's taking care of the fire for us. Another very important responsibility, because we have to keep that going strong, hot, small, and a steady boil. And then myself, Galuhyagan. And of course, all of the students. We have about 150 students between us that come out and tap the trees along with their teachers.
The kids get to come out here and they get to experience nature and science, when there's a lot of science in the trees, just how the sugar gets in there, and the leaves, and we teach them medicine from the woods. They don't even realize that all medicines come from plants and that they're just boiled down and made into pills. And each plant, if you study it, can cure you.
It's really important for the students to learn sustainability and to learn how to utilize our traditional ways so that they can be healthy, I guess, for their own physical, spiritual, and mental health. Being out here in nature is one of our traditions, along with understanding how to work with the natural world, work with the trees, collect the sap. It teaches them an appreciation for everything around us, and not only that, but it's a medicine for their bodies.
The students didn't seem to mind the cool temperatures and windy conditions. Plus, they got to try a bit of syrup from last year's boil with some mini pancakes made by Maxine. Most important, they're learning the ways of their ancestors.
We have students that come from all areas of Green Bay and Oneida, so some of them are from the country, from the reservation, and some of them are from the city. They all have different backgrounds and information as to how much they've worked within the environment and how much they know about our ceremonies. And then we sit down and we talk a little bit about tradition and about the importance of what the trees are doing for us. We talk about the importance of wood, the importance of the sun, the importance of temperature, how important it is for every night for it to freeze in order for us to have sap. It's understanding the significance of every single thing that you're doing and the impact on the environment and how the environment impacts us and how we work together that way. Schools, it's really easy to break down different subjects into math, into science, and even into social studies or English, especially when you're doing a fun project like this, and we like to do that. Of course, it's important that we're all different, and some people are better at math, and some people might be better at science, but all of those skills and all of that knowledge needs to be wound together and used in balance. Along with coming out here and tapping trees, we also teach a lot of the language that goes along with it. When we involve the language, what it does is it really adds so much more emotion and so much more feeling and so much more understanding to what we're doing out here. As an educator, my role is very important. It's important that not only are the children learning, but they're loving what they're learning. I feel like I have a very important role. Being here is something that has been passed down to me, and it gives me that responsibility to continue to pass that down. One way is to put
Benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH, is a common problem that happens as men grow older. The prostate is a walnut-shaped gland located just below the bladder. The prostate makes most of the fluid with an orgasm, and it has smooth muscle to help with orgasms. The urine in the bladder has to pass through the prostate on the way out during urination. The prostate roughly doubles in size at puberty, then starts to slowly enlarge after about age 25, and continues to grow throughout a man's lifetime. I suspect if we lived to be 300 years old, women would just keep getting nicer and nicer, and men would have prostates the size of a basketball. As it enlarges, it starts to cause symptoms of BPH. Most of those symptoms occur after age 50 and are caused by the enlarging prostate pushing on or pinching the urethra, which is the tube coming out of the bladder. Approximately 50% of men aged 51 to 60 have symptoms of BPH, and up to 90% of men over age 80 have symptoms. Common symptoms are a decrease in the force of the urine stream, difficulty starting the urine stream, having to urinate frequently, having to urinate urgently, dribbling, not that kind, and getting up at night to urinate. In severe cases, the flow of urine can be completely blocked, and this can lead to urinary tract infections and increase the risks of getting kidney damage. Treatments are available, including exercises to help completely empty the bladder. Avoiding drinking liquids in the evening can help reduce nocturia, or getting up at night to urinate. Caffeine and alcohol can worsen BPH symptoms. Medicine may help decrease some of the muscle spasm in the prostate and shrink the enlarged prostate tissue itself. Some men might need procedures to get rid of some of the prostate tissue, and this can be done with minimal anesthetic. Others with more severe cases will require surgery and general anesthesia. It's important to see your healthcare provider if you are having symptoms of BPH. BPH does not cause erectile dysfunction, and BPH is not prostate cancer and does not go on to cause prostate cancer. But a prostate-specific antigen blood test, or PSA, and a digital rectal exam are often part of the workup. The PSA can be elevated in prostate cancer, but BPH, or an infection of the prostate, could also cause an elevated PSA. It should be rechecked after treatment is started. If the prostate feels abnormal during the digital rectal exam, or if the PSA is increasing, then a referral to your urologist is recommended. Non-traditional tobacco use is associated with many urinary tract problems, and quitting now is the best thing you can do for you and for those who love and depend on you. Remember to call an elder. They've been waiting for your call. I'm Dr. Arnie Vainio, and this is Health Matters.
Next, our education specialist, Christina Woods, concludes her conversation with Dr. Brokenleg, co-author of the book, Reclaiming Youth at Risk, Our Hope for the Future. They talk about the difference between historic and intergenerational trauma, how we heal, and the steps to building resilience in the next generation.
Well, you're a professor.
Yes.
And you're working with individuals, really, who are studying medicine. Maybe
Yes.
they're a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Social work,
Yes.
education.
Education, business.
What is the primary framework you want them to understand about working in communities where trauma has been experienced?
For one thing, people that are really effective always have a focus on wellness. They look at a person for who she is meant to be, rather than who she might be right now. They look at a situation for the way it ought to be, rather than the way it might be right now. So there's that really focus and emphasis on wellness.
So maybe we can shift gears just a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and have you share with us, you've already shared, in fact, your definition of intergenerational trauma.
Yes.
Well, we have this insight to historic trauma. How do those two intersect? Do they weave together at all?
Yes. I don't know if I would draw a sharp line between the two, but I would say look at the origins of each of those conditions. Historic trauma is would be something like I've had conversations with people who were at the Little Bighorn when Custer was killed. I'm old enough that when I was a child, I knew people who were teenagers, and I used to visit a man who was 17 the day Custer was killed, and he would talk about those things. Well, then his wife was killed at Wounded Knee. This same man, a few years later, 10 years later, so he's in his 20s when his wife is killed at Wounded Knee. That's historic trauma, and even hearing about it when I was in elementary school, that had an effect on me. My parents would have known this would be their parents, and if because they were carrying that, then there was some other dynamic that occurred, maybe some kind of violence, verbal violence or something like that, then that's starting to build that intergenerational trauma as well. So I think I would the differentiation I would make would be primarily between those two would be primarily the origin. That's why I say it's your own suffering, but you also know what did you inherit from what did you cause yourself.
How did learning about this type of trauma change your life?
Mm-hmm. I grew up on a reservation in South Dakota, Rosebud Reservation. There's a lot of dysfunction on the Rosebud Reservation when I was a kid. There was a lot of dysfunction in my family, lots of intergenerational trauma. My parents told me real horror stories of being at boarding school. The racism in South Dakota was a fierce, open, hostile, as overt as it could possibly be. Even when I was a kid, there used to be signs on shops in downtown Rapid City that would say, "No dogs, no Indians allowed." Well, at very least, that's psychological abuse. So I grew up with all of that dysfunction myself. And I think it was part of the reason why I tried to figure out what do we do about life, and how do we make life better? Well, for me, I saw it in psychology, because I can tell you from personal experience that intergenerational trauma never goes away. You have to learn to live with it and how to manage it. It's kind of like a chronic condition like diabetes. You can live a good life, but you have to be thinking about it.
So I don't want to lose the opportunity to have you talk about how you use the medicine wheel in your work.
Yes, so we called our core philosophy that we became known for, we called it the Circle of Courage. Because what we were looking for was what are the major themes that indigenous communities have used to raise successful children. So the whole way of life said you matter more than anything else. So that belonging becomes the life experience. And it is even today for indigenous people, it's our sole motivator. So we put that on one part of our circle. But we use that medicine wheel because it's one of the symbols of wholeness and perfection. That's that endless circle divided into the four winds. So belonging is first. Second is mastery. Mastery is by experience discovering what you're capable of. And if you look at the way we have historically raised children, older always taught younger. Whether this was adults teaching children or it was older siblings teaching younger siblings, The idea was that the older always taught the younger. That was the connection. That's how you would discover what you could do. The third piece has to do with empowerment. How is it that you discover that your power is all inside of you? And that's essentially the only thing you can control. You can't control anything on the outside of you. You can control only what's inside of you. How you respond, how you make choices. And we use the word independence. I sometimes think maybe we should have used the word responsibility. Although we're trying now a new model and we're using the word power. But that's what we mean, power on the inside. So this is power to tend yourself emotionally, power to be responsible for yourself, power to tell the truth, even if it's hard, power enough to do the right thing, even if it's hard. All those pieces are part of that empowerment. And what Indigenous people learned to do was to help children come to the point of not needing the adults any longer, because now they were able to do anything the adults were able to do. And what I say to teachers and to parents today is that that's our real responsibility as adults. It's not to control and manage children. It's to empower our children so they don't need us any longer, because they're living their own life at that point. So that's the third piece in our circle, is independence. And then the fourth building block in our circle that we saw in Indigenous communities was the notion of the importance of generosity. Touching your own goodness, coming back to your own goodness. And of course we have all of those because we see generosity in the world around us. In Lakota cosmology, human beings are the weakest of all the beings that live on the earth, because we need everything else to survive. We need plants that we eat to survive. We take wood for a fire. We take wood for a bow. We need all those things, so we need all the plants, but we also need all the animals. That's what we eat. Those are our medicines. If we don't have them, we're going to die. So we're really very helpless in the face that we're not the peak of creation. We're the weakest part of it, but we depend on all of it because it's generosity toward us. Those are the themes that we should be building on everywhere. This is how we counter the intergenerational trauma. Let's find ways to belong. Let's help people become accomplished. Let's empower people so they can run their own lives and make decisions about the factors that affect them directly. Let's expect people to really give of themselves. If they do all of those things, then they're going to have that strength of spirit that will help them recover from the intergenerational trauma and do good things in their world.
Dr. Brokenleg, I want to thank you. This was inspirational.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So
I appreciate
much.
it.
Thank
Good.
you.
I first came to this area almost 60 years ago, 58 years ago. It was the first time I saw this panel when I was a young boy. I was brought out here by my father, and he said, "You need to see this because this is important, and it'll become more important as you learn more through the course of your life." So what we have on here are many different thunderbirds, birds, Sky Clan. And so when I take a look at this, I can only in my mind try to imagine the people that must have come here, and perhaps the ceremonies that were even performed, because this was a special area. This is a place that in this entire system of cliffs and valleys, this is the only area that really shows birds that have been carved into the rock and the rock faces here.
Ojibwe elder Axel Holmes Sr. is a member of what is known as the Greatest Generation. He grew up during the Great Depression and served overseas during World War II. A decorated Army veteran, Axel claims what he did was not heroic, he only did what he thought was right.
On this warm, sunny day at the Boys Fort Veterans Memorial, the flags rustle in the breeze as an eagle flies overhead. It is here that Axel Holmes Sr. remembers his time of service in World War II.
Well, I was 18 when the war was declared. That was in December. But I went into the Army in March of 1943. That was a year later. I tried to get into the Navy at first, right after war was declared. The next day, some of us went to superiors tried to enlist, but we were too young. They said we had to have our parents' permission, but if I'd have used my head, I'd have forged your name and got in that way, but I was honest in them days. And so we waited and finally wound up being drafted. We first went to the induction center in Milwaukee, where we went through our preliminaries there, and after we'd been at, then they told us that we could go home for 3 weeks on leave. But I and a friend of mine, George Staples, he's from Danbury, we were in the CC camp together, so we were friends. And then we went to Fort Sheridan, where we did our real induction, where we took our tests, all that sort of thing.
Assigned to the 880th Airborne Engineer Aviation Battalion, Axel was stationed in New Guinea.
It was hot there, in the jungle. We were fortunate to get down there instead of going to Europe because, well, we couldn't stand cold there. We know that some of the guys froze in their blankets in the winters that they had there. That's one of the guys was telling us. We were in the Philippines on Luzon when the war ended. We were just off in Clark Field. When we landed at Clark Field, it was just nothing there. Just. But then they moved us further away, and then that's where the battalion and another colored battalion working together, they built a huge airfield there. I don't know what they were building it for, but it turned out that there was what's called a B-32, which is a huge airplane. I've only ever seen only one of them. It was parked there on the end of the runway when we saw it, and they had a B-17 beside it. That B-17 looked like a fighter plane. And I was in the hospital 74 days, and the second day, we went in on August 5th, that's the day they dropped the bomb because the war was going on. Of course, when I came out, it was over, but the next day, some of the people there, I don't know what outfit, would print a mimeographed copy of news that they, but I remember that paper coming as we read it said, "Atomic bomb rocks world," was the headlines on that. And we still didn't understand what that was. But then as we read, they said that they're thinking that the war was going to be ending in 2 weeks. And of course we didn't believe that yet. But it was over.
You want to come on this side, Dan?
Today, Axel is joined by his daughter, Millie, as they view the various names on the stone monuments. He is one of only 2 surviving World War II veterans from Bois Fort. Much consideration went into selecting this site for the memorial.
I sat in on a few of the meetings that, as they were developing this, and I contributed a little bit of the Anishinaabe, the spiritual part, helped out with the spiritual part of it. We're right in the front of the lake, and the island right behind me is a spirit island, and that's pretty strong to me. I feel this is very, very strong. It's a very strong setting, especially with that the island there. They call that Manidu Minis, which is a spirit island, and it's very strong. The powwows that I go to, they really, really honor, especially the Ogichita, the one that, my interpretation, maybe other people have different definitions of Ogichita, and mine is the one who went up against the enemy and he came home. If it wasn't for these guys here, we wouldn't be here today. And it's always good to hear these people that are honoring the veterans.
This place is all about honoring our veterans. And even though Axel is a decorated veteran, he doesn't see himself as a hero of any sort.
I go up and look at my name and my son's name and some of my friends. A lot of them are up there, but most of them are gone now because there's only 2 of us World War II veterans left there now in that lake. they're all gone. Being in the airborne and then being in the veteran as ration check, supplying all the troops over and over, that I contribute quite a bit. Well, I wasn't labeled no hero because I wasn't. I just went to war and came home.
For more information about Native Report or the stories we've covered, look for us on the web at nativereport.org, on Facebook, and on YouTube.
Thank you for spending this time with your friends and neighbors in Indian Country. I'm Ernie Stevens.
And I'm Rita Aspinwall. We'll see you next time on Native Report.
Rita Aspinwall is an enrolled member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and is an ICWA social worker with Fond du Lac Social Services. Ernie Stevens is a member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and is a film and television producer. Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux Community, the Blandin Foundation, and the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation.